Today I'm going to share some of my own advice on how to do well in Singapore as someone without a degree. Now I think this is somewhat of a continuation of my previous video last year when I talked about the pros and cons of not having a degree in Singapore. When I made that video last year, I think I was a little bit dejected. I think I was feeling a little bit burnt out from my tuition job, and also my YouTube and website at that time wasn't doing fantastic. But in a year's time, I think a lot has changed. So those who have been following my channel will know that I got a full-time job, and then my website and YouTube actually picked up over the past year or so. And now I'm in this very comfortable position where I'm juggling all three, and I'm doing things that I like. And I think that I'm bringing in an okay amount of income for someone without a degree. And beyond just money, I think I really enjoy my life right now, especially my working life, because I'm doing things that I really like. And yeah, I think things are really going very well in my professional life right now. I'm right here in Taipei doing another vacation, so stay tuned to the video. So I think I am in a position to share a little bit of tips on what worked out for me so far as someone without a degree in Singapore. As usual, please do me a favor and drop me a like, just half a second of your time. Now, the first thing I would say is relatively obvious, okay? But let's get the obvious thing out of the way first, and I think you should find your first job. So if you're someone like me back then, fresh out of NS, and no uni to go to while everyone else is going to uni, right? The first thing I did was to find my first job because that provided me with income, and that also provided me with some direction on where I want to go from there. I've already talked about my first job before, so you can tap this video to see my experience as an insurance agent back then. And I think that really set me on this trajectory of being interested in personal finance. And to this date, I still do personal finance as my website and YouTube and my day job. They are all personal finance related. And I think that was all thanks to my first job that set me on this path. And as you should know by now, insurance agents actually do not require much educational qualifications. As long as you have a GCE, A-level or poly diploma, you can work as an insurance agent, or some would like to call themselves financial consultants. But do be warned, this is a career path that is very morally hazardous, and I've talked about this so many times throughout my YouTube channel, so you can go and look at all those videos as well. You can also consider other self-employed jobs like being a property agent, which does not require much educational qualifications. You just need to take some tests and get certified, and you can be a property agent as well. And there are really a lot of other self-employed things that you can do. And people start businesses, they do things like selling stuff on Lazada, Shopee, right? We live in a gig economy, and I think there's really a lot of things you can go and explore and do. But the important thing is you must start somewhere. And so I would encourage you to do your first job, regardless whether or not it is a self-employed job, a freelance job, or if you try to apply for one of the full-time jobs, because there are employers that actually don't mind applicants without degrees. If you were to look at the comments in my past video or even on Reddit threads talking about the lack of degree, so many people tell you that the first job is actually the stepping stone, and from there you can actually work yourself up the ladder. And yeah, degree, a lot of people say, is just the door opener to your first job. After that, it's all about your resume, your working experience. So the first job is really, really important. Okay, so if you have decided not to go and take your degree, or like me back then can't really take a degree, I would suggest just go and find your first job first, earn some money while you figure out your life, and then I think things will fall in place from there. Business, of course, is also one of the ways that a person without degree can excel in Singapore, and that's actually my path as well. I started tuition center, again more on this adventure in this video. But long story short, I basically was teaching tuition out of necessity because that was one of the few things I could do to make me a living. And then I realized that, hey, my student pool has grown to a certain size, I should start a tuition business, and therefore I did. And yeah, that actually made me enough money such that I can move out, buy my own place. And therefore, a business is also a very viable way for people without degree to do okay in Singapore. And when you want to start a business, do consider using a service like Awesome, which actually takes care of all the pesky administrative things like finance, compliance, accounting, so that you can concentrate on things that you're good at and things that you enjoy. Awesome is this service that lets you manage your business with an app, and the team is always ready to answer any questions or queries you may have. And you can again use this wonderful app to do all your communication with the team. Sign up with my link below and you not only get free incorporation services but 16% discount off Awesome services, and you also help support this channel. So thanks for signing up and thanks Awesome for sponsoring this video. The next thing that I think is actually very important once you get your first job is actually your first skill. And your first skill, I think, really determines how successful you will be in life. And for me personally speaking, I think my skill actually resides in the art of explaining things to people. If I look back at my life and my working life, all my jobs required explaining concepts to people, whether they are school children and I'm explaining mathematical concepts to them, or they're like people like you watching and interested in personal finance. I'm not saying that I'm the best at explaining things to people, but I think I'm good enough that I earn an income from it through my various jobs of explaining things to people. And over time, I learned to be better at it by being more entertaining, by trying to figure out what the person does not understand by imagining myself in their shoes. And yeah, I think over time, this has really become the number one skill that I have that brings me an income. So I double down on it and I do things relating to explaining concepts to people, particularly in the field of personal finance. Now, I feel that it's very important to find something that you like and then something that you can easily monetize and find the overlap between that. For instance, I like a lot of things. I like movies, I like food, I like to explain things to people, but I realized that explaining things to people is the one that actually gets me the most amount of income. Okay, I'm not saying that food and movies don't cut it, right? YouTube channels actually make a lot of money, those big ones from the US. And food, well, Seth Lui is doing a very good job monetizing that, but I'm Seth Wee. So I have decided that my thing that I like and something that can be monetized is actually explaining things to people and specifically personal finance stuff. And that's why I'm doing this YouTube, my website, and my day job also revolves around personal finance. I think we are now in a society where skills are now increasingly more valued than paper qualifications. So if you look at someone like a computer programmer, he or she may not have a paper degree, but if he or she can code, right, those are in high demand now that tech is such a big thing. Your first job, of course, might help you figure out what your first skill should be. And once you have those in place, I think you will be in very good stead to move on to the next advice that I have for you, which is to find your first pot of gold. I learned this concept of having the first pot of gold from someone many years ago, and I am now experiencing the benefits of it. The moment you have enough resources, you realize that you can easily gain more resources out of it. For example, a lot of people say that once you earn your first 100,000, the next 200, $300,000 will be easy to earn, and I have found out that that's exactly the case. Now, this concept is somewhat related to my first skill and first job advice, which is if you know how to make your first $100,000, chances are you improve on that process, and then your next $100,000 is just going to be easier to earn. And of course, in capitalism, the rich gets richer, and that's the case in Singapore as well. And I remember feeling how it was so unfair that when I was earning only $1,000 per month last time, I was not eligible for credit cards and missed out all the sign-up goodies, all the spending benefits that came from putting spend on your cards. But that's the way the game is, and I can only play the game as it is rather than how I wish it were, and therefore I made it my life's mission at that time to get my first credit card, and I finally got it at the ripe old age of 29, way past the age most people get their first credit cards, usually 23 to 25 when they start working. And as my resources grew, I qualified for higher end cards, which themselves also unlocked more benefits and perks. So your first pot of gold is very, very important. Okay, with that, you can invest, you can buy property, you can flip your property and then buy a bigger one and flip it again. So your first pot of gold unlocks so many more options that allow you to get more pots of gold. And that's, I feel, the way you can thrive in Singapore and lead a comfortable life. And I don't think you need a very high income to get your first pot of gold. I think you just need to be a bit more aggressive with your saving and recognize that your first pot of gold will unlock you so much more options that is worthwhile to give up some gratification now and rein in your spending so that you can save for your first pot of gold, which will get you more resources in future. I'm moving on to the last piece of advice I have for people who want to do well without a degree. And I think this might be the most important. And you know me, I like to save the best for the last in my videos. And I think the first question that you should ask yourself is, whether or not life in Singapore is actually suitable for you. If at any time during the first job or first pot of gold I was talking about, you felt uncomfortable about the rat race as well as the capitalistic nature of Singapore, you might want to ask yourself whether or not Singapore is actually a suitable place for you to live and thrive in. Because I know that it is not a good place for everyone. Now, don't get me wrong, I really love Singapore and I consider it my home. And despite working overseas so often, I do like to be in Singapore most of the time. But I recognize that it is not a great place for everyone. And there are people who have left Singapore and they are now much happier. Like my friend Jean, who lives a very, very nice and peaceful life in Bali. And she's someone with a degree, a law degree no less. But she realized that the life in Singapore was not for her, and therefore she has left many years ago, and she couldn't be happier now in her new life that does not require a degree at all. As someone without a degree in a place like Singapore where having a degree is the norm, we are already a bunch of unconventional people. So I think our lives may be just unconventional, and instead of taking a full-time job and then working the 9 to 5 life, we may be more suited for lifestyles that are just completely different from the Singaporean way of doing things. This is, of course, a very personal and subjective question that you yourself have to answer, but I hope that this at least set you thinking whether or not you want to play by the rules of the Singaporean game. Because if you find it exhausting, you find that you don't fit here, you might be better off finding somewhere else that may be more of a calling to you. Alternatively, if you think that you do want to stay in the Singaporean system and try to beat the game, then I think we have to flip the script and do things in a non-conventional way. Again, we are unconventional people, being degreeless people in a sea of degree holders. And so we have to do things really quite differently from others, I feel, if we want to succeed. So yeah, you can do funny things like set up a tuition center, you can be a content creator, or just about anything under the sun that you can think of. And that perhaps is the most liberating thing, where you have just unlimited things to do. In a way, sometimes I look back at my life and I wonder to myself whether or not failing to go into uni was actually a blessing in disguise, because I think it has turned out so much better than I've expected. Okay, I'm living the life that I really want to do. I'm carefree, I can travel quite often, and I can do things that interest me. And I really wonder, in a alternate universe where I actually got my law degree, which I aspired to in the past, whether or not I'll be truly happy being in that office environment 9 to 6 or maybe even 9 to 9, slogging away over legal documents. Would that Seth be happier than this one right here? I really doubt it. And yeah, so I really count my lucky stars that I didn't get my degree in the end. Of course, life is full of changes and surprises, so never say never. I might still take a uni degree in future, maybe out of necessity or out of interest. We never know. But what I do know is that life without a degree is not the end. Okay, so to pass Seth, 21 years old, without a uni to enter, you did fine. And if you are watching this and you are fretting over your future because you don't have a degree, fret not. Just go and do something and make something out of your life. I think you will do fine, and you can look back at your life like me when I'm in my mid-30s and then okay, getting a bit mopey, so I'll end it here. So remember to subscribe to my Telegram group for more content and great deals, and also tap this video and also this video, because watching more videos help my channel out. See you in those videos.